The U.S. military says it has conducted another strike against a boat that was allegedly smuggling drugs in the eastern Pacific Ocean, and officials say the strike killed one person.
So at least 105 people have now been killed in these strikes on suspected drug boats since President Trump began his military campaign off the coast of Venezuela in September. Meantime, he is also stepping up his threats and warnings to Venezuela's president as tensions rise over seized oil tankers in that region. CNN senior White House reporter Kevin Liptak joining us now with more of the details. So, Kevin, all of this unfolding as well as the UN Security Council is set to meet in just a matter of hours regarding Venezuela. Where do things stand?
Yeah, certainly heightened tensions there. That strike on the alleged drug boat was the 29th so far, at least that we know of. What U.S. Southern Command says is that this boat was transiting along known narco trafficking routes and was engaging in narco trafficking operations, although they didn't provide any evidence for those claims, just as they haven't in any of the previous strikes. One thing is that interesting here is that when you look at the video they've put out, it does differ somewhat from what we've seen previously. You know, those previous strikes were conducted at some range. You see, in some instances, a projectile going down and the boat exploding, seeming to be a missile. What we see in this instance is different. We see sort of individual splashes in the water, individual penetrations, ultimately the boat becoming engulfed in flames, which is suggesting that perhaps they're using a different weapon than they used previously. When it comes to these oil tankers, what we heard from President Trump yesterday is that the U.S. remains in pursuit of the Bella One. That's the massive oil tanker that the Coast Guard tried to board before it turned around and essentially started fleeing into the Caribbean Sea. He did say that the U.S. was confident that they would ultimately be able to interdict it. You know, when President Trump sort of brought in reporters yesterday to Mar-a-Lago with the defense secretary and the secretary of Navy, I think there was an expectation that perhaps he would provide a little bit more information about what his end game was when it comes to Venezuela. But when he was asked whether his goal was to ultimately oust the president there, Nicolas Maduro, he was somewhat equivocal. Listen to what he said.
He can do whatever he wants. I mean, we have a massive armada formed, the biggest we've ever had. Whatever he wants to do. If he wants to do something, if he plays tough, it'll be the last time he's ever able to play tough.
So tough rhetoric there, but not shedding a whole lot of light on what actually is the end game when it comes to this dramatic and escalating situation around Venezuela.
And President Trump has also announced the construction of a new class of Navy ships, Kevin. He's named them after himself. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, these will be the Trump-class battleships. They're part of this initiative that the president is undertaking to build what he's called the Golden Fleet for the U.S. Navy, replacing what he calls old and tired and obsolete ships with new, superior vessels. He says these battleships will be fitted with guns and missiles at the highest level, cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles, rail guns. He says the most sophisticated lasers in the world. He also said they're be very AI controlled, although he didn't really explain what exactly that meant. He also says that they'll just be more aesthetically pleasing. The president has said in the past that he thinks the Navy's current fleet is ugly. He thinks that it's too rusty and that he'll be involved in the design here because he's, quote, a very aesthetic person.
I'm going to leave it at that. Kevin Liptak, appreciate it as always. Thank you.